Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Talk of the Day with Paul Stanley. And today we have a very wonderful guest with me to talk about very interesting educational issue. Today we are going to talk about private tutoring, or we might familiar with the term shadow education. And now with me Mr. Hernandez will be joining with me to discuss our today's topic. Mr. Hernandez is an education activist, and he will give us his views about everything that involve around shadow education. Good evening, Mr. Hernandez. Welcome to today's Talk of the Day show. It is good to have you here.
Good evening, Paul. Thank you for having me. I feel very honored to be here.
Now, Mr. Hernandez, first question. What do you have in mind about shadow education?
Well, it is a hidden form of privatization behind the facade of public education systems. And in fact that shadow education is seen by many families as unavoidable appears to be incompatible with the spirit of the Universal Declaration.
And what seems to be the problem with this shadow education?
This shadow education then turns to the scale and nature of shadow education around the world, highlighting its existence in both high-income and low-income countries. This leads to consideration of the extent to which the relevant clause of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights still has pertinence in contemporary times, and of the implications for government policy.
So what does it mean?
Shadow education, if left to market forces, is likely to perpetuate and increase social inequalities. Since higher-income households are able more easily than lower-income households to afford both superior quality and greater amounts of private tutoring. This pattern also of course applies in regular schooling. Rich families can send their children to types of private schools that are out of reach for poor families.
But I see that private tutoring is very demanding these days. By both background, either rich families and poor families. And it is very helpful also. What can you say about that?
Indeed, it is very demanding. People also get benefit from that. However, as shadow education has expanded, middle-income and low-income families have found themselves forced to invest in private tutoring, alongside public provision that is supposedly equal.
I see. And this leads to my last question. What is your stance in this issue? And why do you think so?
With the spreading of the private tutoring in education, especially when we talk about having good quality education, not everyone have the access of such service. As emerging market, private tutoring can only be accessed by those who has high income, while denying the access of those who has lower income, and indirectly force them eventually. Therefore, I think private tutoring is damaging the core spirit of education for all agenda, which is the right to access the education.
Well, that's a very convincing point you have there, Mr. Hernandez. Well said. And I also hope you guys at home got your own views about our today's topic. Thank you so much for sharing with us today, Mr. Hernandez.
My pleasure, Paul.
Well, this is the end of today's episode. I will see you again in another Talk of the Day with Paul Stanley with another interesting topic. Till then, I'm Paul Stanley. See you later.